Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to today's training, which we have entitled Creative Thinking Skills for HR Managers. The presenter for today is Andrew Ondari, as you can see from your screen. Before we start, I want to give a brief overview of creative thinking and its relevance in today's work environment. Truth be said, when we stop creating, we start dying. There are many ways that HR managers can die when they stop creating or being creative. One, that there will be no new products or services that can be introduced in the organization. Secondly, the organization can decline or even die because there are no new ways of doing work. Three, the organization cannot compete successfully in its environment with the competitors. And four, the organizations cannot generate revenues and profits because we do things the old way and expecting different results. What has brought about the need for creative thinking? There are several things that have necessitated HR managers to be creative. Number one is the emergence of new technologies such as AI. That in the AI space, we need to provide services in a way that is innovative. So without embracing new technologies like AI, then HR managers cannot be creative. Secondly, the changes in our environment. There are so many changes that take place in our environment, such as technology, mobility of customers and employees, changes in strategy, or even changes in policy. These changes necessitate HR managers to be creative in the way they do their things. Thirdly, is the globalization of businesses. Today, many organizations operate in the global space. That means that as we conduct our businesses from wherever we are, we can transact businesses across the world with anybody, anywhere. And this has been brought about three things. One, communication. Three, technology. And four, improvements in transport. The third aspect that has necessitated creative thinking is the diversity of our workforce. We now have different people from different backgrounds represented in our workspaces, such as Gen Zs, millennials, and even Generation X, who are by now exiting. That for us to be able to cater to the needs of all these people, we have to be creative. And lastly, there is a movement towards home working or working away from the office. This has meant that we need to be creative in order to, one, ensure that we maintain our performance levels. Two, we allow employees to work from the comfort of their homes without the need for traveling. All these aspects have created the need for creative thinking. And that is why today we are talking about creative thinking skills for HR managers. I also want to add one more thing, that our environment has become volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. For that reason, HR managers have to respond creatively to the changes in this environment, which is acronymed as VUCA, V-U-C-A, where VUCA means, where V means volatile, that the environment is changing rapidly, and therefore our ways of doing business must also change, which calls for creativity. U stands for uncertain, that you can never predict accurately what is likely to happen tomorrow or the other day. Why? Because of changes in technology and the ways of doing business. C stands for complex, that as HR managers, we operate in a complex environment where we need to network with so many people. We have to deploy technology, and we also have to compete in a market that is full of competitors. So complexity has come as a result of networked organizations, a lot of data, and also competition. And lastly, A stands for ambiguity, that many things may not be clear to us. And as a result, we need to make them clearer, because we have a responsibility of ensuring that everything we do in HR, ranging from recruitment, training, and performance appraisals, are clear. So we need to clear these ambiguities. And that is the reason why we talk about creative thinking skills for HR managers. And as we move on through this program today, we are going to see the way all these aspects come into play when we talk of thinking skills for HR managers. I want us to look at the scope of our topic today. That is, what are we going to cover in this presentation? These are some of the areas that we are going to cover, starting with foundations of creative thinking in HR. There's a typo there. I'll correct it. This is basically an introduction to creative thinking, where we shall define the concept of creativity, 2, its applications, 3, areas or types of creativity, and 4, the importance of creativity in HR. So that will form our foundation or introduction to the topic. Secondly, we will look at the conceptual blocks to creativity. By this, we mean any factors within an individual or outside which may prevent HR managers to be creative. By conceptualization, we mean the way we think, the way we reason. So if there are hindrances within us, then we prevent creativity from taking place. So we shall look at the various blocks that prevent people from being creative. Thirdly, we shall look at creative thinking skills. And this is basically our topic, creative thinking skills for HR managers. We shall look at a range of some of these skills, such as problem solving, critical thinking, and being agile. The next is approaches to creative thinking in human resource management, where we shall be talking about various methodologies. Approaches are basically methodologies that we use in order to be creative thinkers. And then next is the tools and techniques. Tools are frameworks or equipment that we use to identify or define problems. And techniques are methods or processes that we engage in order to clearly define the problems that may be facing human resource management in our organizations. Next is fostering creative groups and teams. This basically refers to the ways in which we can promote creativity in our teams and groups. We need creative teams and groups so that we can produce better results, meaning that by working together as teams, there is always synergy that is produced. Second last is building a creative environment or culture. How can we as HR managers create an environment where there is continuous creativity, and not only in our departments, but also in other departments? And lastly, we shall be looking at emerging skills, rather emerging trends in creative thinking. That the world is constantly changing, and we must be cognizant of the trends that are taking place around us. We shall look at many of these trends, such as adoption of AI or personalization of training, which are creative ways of addressing some of the issues that we have in the human resource department. So basically, those are the areas that we shall be covering in this topic, starting now. Foundations of creative thinking is an introduction that we have given, referring to creative thinking skills in HR management. By definition, we have said that creativity is generating new and valuable ideas. Another word for novel is new. That as HR managers, we are required to generate new ideas related to the various functions like recruitment. We need to develop new ideas, and these new ideas must be valuable. It is possible that you can develop new ideas, but they are not important. Good ideas are those that can be used to develop new products or develop new systems or improve a process. So creativity is about generating new ideas which are valuable to an organization, and that is why we need to be creative thinkers as HR managers, because we add value. As I've indicated there, creative managers approach problems in unconventional ways and innovate and find innovative solutions. Unconventional means avoiding the beaten track, avoiding doing things in the old way. So the unconventional ways are those new approaches that we engage in order to deliver superior services. And then innovative solutions is about implementing the ideas, that unless an idea has been implemented, we can never achieve results. So comparatively, when you talk about creativity is about generating ideas, while innovation is actioning those ideas to achieve results. So creative managers are those who are innovative because they translate the creative ideas into solutions or into products. And then where do we apply our creative thinking skills? There are quite a number of areas where we can apply our skills. I've only highlighted 3, which I believe are key in transforming our departments and our organizations by extension. One is talent acquisition. This is about attracting people with the right skills, knowledge, experiences, and attitudes or abilities. The traditional way of doing this is advertising vacant positions in various media and waiting for them to apply. However, today we cannot rely on those traditional ways because we have new tools and new ways of doing that. One of which is to automate our recruitment and selection process. That by automating, we are likely to acquire top talent from our environment by using technology. So talent acquisition has moved from the physical media to technology, which is digitized. We can also apply our creativity in employee engagement. Engaging employees means that you make them committed to the organization and also ensuring that they can also promote our organizations to potential candidates or customers. And that's why we talk of Net Promoter Index, where employees are willing and ready to refer those potential candidates or customers to our organizations. So this can only be done if we are creative. So what are the creative ways of engaging employees? One could be giving them freedom, autonomy, and independence to perform their duties. That means reducing supervision, which was common yesterday. Secondly, employee engagement can be achieved through promotion of personalized learning, that people can learn by identifying their own skills deficiencies. And as HR managers, we craft training programs around the needs of individual employees. In this way, employees feel like they are recognized and whatever their needs are, they are satisfied. And that brings about employee engagement. And lastly is organizational culture, which determines the behavior of people in an organization. So we need to build a culture of creativity, which we shall talk about towards the end of this training. In a creative culture is where managers encourage people to brainstorm on issues. Two, managers encourage diversity of ideas from different people within and outside the organization. And three, a creative culture is one that encourages people to think out of the box by giving them assignments that stretch their skills and knowledge. So giving them stretch assignments can create a culture of creativity. What are the types of creativity that as HR managers we need to embrace? One is product creativity. There are many products or services that we offer as HR managers to other departments or even within our departments. Such products include training. That the training that we offer for various employees require creativity. As we shall see, that training is no longer the traditional class training that we used to offer. training has now become virtual. And we can train people virtually to avoid or reduce cost or enable access to learning materials at any time. There are other products like counseling that we offer to employees. So counseling is about facilitating employees to find solutions to their own problems. And we should not wait until there are issues so that we can start counseling them. So we need to be creative enough to start these processes early enough so that we don't start firefighting. Secondly is the process innovation. The processes of recruitment, training, and performance appraisals are expected to be efficient and effective. By efficient, we mean that we optimize the resources. And by effectiveness, we mean we produce maximum results. This can only be possible if we are creative in the way we operate our businesses as HR managers. So those processes can be shortened, that is a way of creativity, or the timelines reduced, that is part of creativity, or we change the processes so that we can improve them. So we can change the process of recruitment, training, and performance appraisals to make them more effective. And that calls for creativity. Thirdly is strategic innovation. Today, we are talking of HR managers as being strategic partners. So as we formulate our own strategies, they must be aligned with the corporate objectives and strategies. So that aspect of strategic innovation requires that we think around and about our HR functions and how best we can improve them so that we can achieve our strategic objectives. There are various strategies like employee engagement, staff retention, and performance management. So we need to move away from the traditional ways of doing things to more strategic approach to managing our human resources. The other aspect is cultural innovation. We are all aware that culture is dynamic, not only within an organization, but even outside because we operate in a global environment. Whatever values that we identify both within and outside, which can be of use to us as HR managers, we can adopt them. So cultural innovation requires that we identify those good practices that can improve the performance of our employees and our departments. And this can be done through teamwork as a cultural innovation, through continuous improvement, that is part of innovation. So we need to create a culture around the way we do things. So if it's recruitment, what are our practices that can improve our performance? If it's training, what is it that we can do that can improve our performance? The next one is service innovation. For example, we are talking about wellness programs or flexible working. Talking of flexible working, this has to do with creating a balance between the time a person spends in an organization and their personal life. By being flexible, we allow them to attend to their personal issues while at the same time delivering services. So flexible working may include a number of ways or things. One is flexi time, where employees report to work at a time convenient to them, either at between 8 and 10, or late in the afternoon, depending on the agreement with their managers. So that's one way of being innovative, flexi time. The other one can be home working, which has become the new currency in town, that people don't need to have a physical appearance in the organizations. They can work from their homes. So home working is a new way of delivering services. Another flexible method of working is shift working, where people can work in shifts of 1 week or shifts of 1 month, depending on what works for us. We can also be flexible in other ways by giving people compressed work weeks, where they work extra time within a week so that they can be away the following week. So in this way, we are likely to deliver effective services through those innovative methods of working. On wellness and support, we need to ensure that our employees are emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and physically healthy. We all know that a healthy workforce is a productive workforce. That without this wellness support, we are not likely to be productive. So we need to support our employees in many ways under wellness. One is to provide the necessary resources for them to function effectively. Secondly, we can provide them or support them with counseling. Thirdly, we can support them by way of training. And lastly, we can support them by allowing them to attend sports events, both within and outside the organization, so that they are physically healthy. Another area of innovation or type of innovation is technological. We may not be the ones to produce the technologies, but we can adopt different technologies that can make our work easier and cost-effective. AI is one of the technologies we are going to adopt or have already adopted. This will enable us to make effective decision-making. Generative AI is one of the emerging tools that we can use in recruitment, can use in training, performance management, as well as compensation management. Where in compensation management, we shall be conducting salary surveys by using AI as a tool of gathering data that we can use to make decisions. So technologies are available, and it's for us HR managers to adopt them so that we can streamline our operations. Another type of innovation is behavioral innovation. The behavior of people at the workplace affects three stakeholders. One, internal customers, that our behavior might affect their way of doing things because we have not inculcated the right way of doing things. The second stakeholder is the external customer, that the behavior of our employees, especially those in the front office, interact regularly with these external customers. So these customers create an impression of what we do and what we stand for based on the behaviors of our employees. And three, the behaviors also affect potential investors in our organizations, that if our behaviors are not right, then our potential investors are likely to be discouraged. So innovation in behavior requires that we train people to address problems, to maintain relations with the customers, and 3, communicate in an effective way. And then lastly is organizational innovation, which covers all the aspects of an organization from top to bottom. There are various ways in which we can innovate as organizations. One is about structures. These structures are about reporting relationships. Traditionally, we had these tall hierarchical structures, which were very bureaucratic, meaning that communication and decision-making takes a long time. But today, we are talking about broad-based and flat organizations, where the hierarchies are short and more people performing work at the lower levels instead of having so many layers, which delays decision-making. So what happens in these organizational innovational structures is that there is no vertical promotion because there are no hierarchies. So today we talk about horizontal promotion, where we add people more responsibilities, give more independence, and also increase their compensation. So we are innovating in the way we structure our organizations. So as HR managers, we need to look at the structures that we have and look for ways of innovative ways of managing performance, recruiting, and also compensating them. Through short and broad-based structures, we are likely to improve our communication flows because there are fewer levels or layers of management within the structure. What is the importance of creativity in human resource and leadership? As I said from the introduction, that we need to be creative because of the changes in our environment. And by being creative, we bring value to our organization. So what value do we bring by being creative? Number one is improved problem solving. HR managers are problem solvers. We look for solutions to various issues that are affecting us. There are issues to do with discipline, issues to do with productivity, issues to do with recruitment and selection, or issues of employee retention and turnover. So by being creative, we solve problems related to those areas. That is, we look for new ways of solving problems. So if the problem in training is how we can train as many people as possible at the same time, then we need to be creative. How do we be creative? By adopting technology, like what we are doing today. That through online learning, we can train as many people as possible. And by adopting this technology, we are being creative to solve training problems. Secondly, is improved decision-making. It is closely related to the first point, but decision-making is about making choices from among alternatives. That as HR managers, we create possible options or solutions to our problems. And from those many possibilities, we choose one or two that can work for us. By choosing, it means that we decide, we make a decision. And as we make decisions, we look at those solutions that have the greatest impact on an organization. And that is why when we are making decisions, we look at several things. One, the relevance of the decision. The choices that we make must be relevant. Two, the impact. What could be the effects of the decision that we make on our processes, policies, and even laws? Three, the choices we make, we should also consider the reactions of the various stakeholders. For example, in hard economic times like today, we may wish to reduce cost. And one of the ways of reducing cost is to retrench employees. So if redundancy is an option, what could be the effect of this option and what could be the reactions? And therefore, in decision making, we have to employ creative skills so that we don't make mistakes. Thirdly, we are able to adapt to changes in our environment. That creative thinkers are those who identify issues proactively and take measures to address them today. They also adapt to these changes like technology, because we may not fight technology because we have no control over it. So by adapting new technologies, we are being creative so as to improve our performance in human resource management. How do we, for example, adapt to changes in our environment, especially in an IT space in which we are operating? For example, when you allow people to work from their homes, that is home working, they can be bored because they are alone. They may be stressed because they have nobody to talk to. Or they may not be able to deliver results because they don't have a support system. So as HR managers, what do we do as people work from home? We can do several things. One, we can create virtual coffee sessions. Virtual coffee sessions where employees log into their systems and enjoy a cup of coffee and discuss issues that are affecting them. This means that they are able to see each other, they are able to share their frustrations or ideas. So by having such flexible and creative ways of working like virtual coffee sessions, we are able to adapt to the new methods of working, that is working from home. Number 4, we are able to attract and retain talent. That creativity in recruitment and selection practices will help us to attract talented employees. What are the new ways or creative ways of attracting talent? One is to use social media. Examples of social media include Telegram, WhatsApp, or YouTube, especially for young employees like Gen Zs. They don't have time to read newspapers or visit websites. When information is readily available on their palms, that is by use of their mobiles, they are able to respond to advertisements by organizations. So we need to be creative in the way we attract our employees or talent. And then talent retention is about keeping those employees we have attracted. So how do we keep them? And again, creative ways of retention kick in. So how do we retain our employees? One is by empowering them. Empowering them in two ways. One, making decisions and holding them accountable. Two, through training and development so that they can acquire new skills. And three, financial empowerment, where they are paid competitively so that they are happy with their pay and therefore we retain them. Another importance of creativity in HR is boosting employee engagement. That employee engagement, as I have indicated, is about being dedicated and committed to the organization. So through creativity, we are able to engage these employees. And just like in retention, we can train them, we can mentor them, we can coach them. In terms of performance, we can also provide innovative tools that can enable them to work effectively. Another aspect or relevance of creativity in HR is strengthening organizational culture. There are various cultural aspects related to creativity, one of which is empowering employees. Empowering employees makes them happy and also innovative. That when people have the right skills and knowledge, they are likely to be creative thinkers. Or by giving them resources like computers, they are able to conduct research. So we need to create a culture of research, a culture of innovation, and a culture of exploration. So creative thinking is valuable insofar as strengthening organizational culture is concerned. The other one is attainment of a competitive advantage. That we are in a very competitive environment where we have to compete for employees, compete for products, and also compete for technology. Speaking of employees, we need to acquire employees or top talent to our organization. And not just any. We need to bring on board unique talents. Talents that cannot be imitated anywhere. And that requires that we find out how best we can attract these unique employees so that we can achieve a competitive advantage. So having a competitive advantage is about being the best in the market compared to the other players. So you must have the best employees. And the best employees are those who are innovative, those who have the skills, those who have the knowledge, and those who have the experience, which cannot be found anywhere because these are unique resources. And lastly, is about collaboration. That today we have embraced teamwork, which helps us to achieve synergy. Synergy is about having or achieving better results than when individuals are working alone. How does synergy contribute to, or teamwork contribute to creativity? Teamwork or people from different backgrounds bring on board different ideas, methods of working, and innovations. So we can tap into these ideas, these innovations from people from diverse backgrounds. And that is why we need to embrace team working or collaborative approaches, because that is where creativity lies. Because as human beings and as individuals, we are limited in our own ways. But when we work together as a team, we are likely to generate more creative ideas than when working alone. And that is the first part of my presentation. Before we go to the next part, maybe I can open the session so that we can ask questions if there are any. So the floor is yours. You can ask any questions or give a comment with regard to what I have said. Okay. Presumably there is no question. I will request that we move to the next part, that is creative HR solutions. That the topic is about creativity, creative skills in human resource management. So we need to find creative solutions to our problems. And what are the solutions that we have related to the various aspects of our department? One is the flexible work arrangements, which I have already alluded to, that we need to allow our employees flexible hours so that, one, we avoid burnout, two, we avoid stress, and also three, we promote employee engagement. So these flexible working arrangements include remote working. Remote working is, like I have said, working from home or whichever other place somebody is. Sorry. Remote working has become a new way of working, especially after COVID. And it helps reduce costs. As organizations, we are concerned about cost. What are the costs associated with the people working on site? On site, not remote, on site. One is electricity. Two is water. Three is office space. And four is wastage. Because when people come to the organization, they produce waste. Several types of waste, physical waste or other forms of waste, like paper waste, which is a cost to the organization because we have to hire somebody to collect the waste and dispose it. By allowing people to work remotely, we are able to cut on cost. Flexible working hours is another work arrangement where people can report between 8 and 10 and leave either at 3 or 5, depending on the time they reported. This allows the employees to attend to their personal life without worrying about reporting time. So if managers agree, employees can report at 8 for a period of, say, 6 months and leave at 3. After 3, they can attend to their personal issues, or they can report at 10 or in between. So those who report at 8 leave at 3. Those who report at 9 leave at 4. and those who report at 10 leave at 5. So those are flexible work hours, which can create a balance for employees. Especially for young people, this kind of creative solution can help us to engage them for a longer period of time than making them report to work on a daily basis from 8 to 5. Secondly is the wellness programs, where we are saying that the employee well-being is very important because of the attendant negative effects that come with the negative wellness programs. For instance, employees get stressed if they can't achieve their performance targets. They can also get stressed if they cannot meet their financial obligations. They can also get stressed or burnt out by having so much work to do within a short time. Or they could be having personal problems related to their families. This causes mental health problems. So as HR managers, we need to find solutions to these mental health problems. So one of the creative programs that we can engage in is visits. We can have co-workers of the employees visiting each other on a regular basis, just to check out on how they are doing. 2, we can have a buddy system where we attach employees with their fellow workers who can be checking on each other. That if a person is absent for some reason, they are able to find out why they are not in and what could be the issue. Or 3, we can have regular team building activities where people work together in a collaborative manner so that we can create that relationship for employees who could possibly be stressed. So wellness programs are creative ways of solving mental health issues. The other one is gamification, games, gamification of either recruitment, performance appraisal, or even training. We may be aware that when we play games, we enjoy them. So games are supposed to be enjoyed, just like football or any other game like netball or badminton. How can we introduce games in the various processes? Let me start with the recruitment. How do we make recruitment process interesting and enjoyable? We can adopt games, especially during interviews, where you bring together various candidates and give them assignments. And through these assignments, they are able to compete with each other. The one that comes up with the best solution is the one that we select. So through this game, the candidates are able to demonstrate their skills, be it communication, problem solving, or leadership, when they are competing. So games in recruitment can be in the form of those competitions that we can give our candidates so that they can showcase their skills and competences. In training, we can introduce games. So what games can we introduce? I can mention one quick one. That is pick a box, where employees are asked to pick a box containing questions or quizzes, and then they are asked to answer the questions in those boxes. So through the discussions based on the boxes, the participants are able to acquire new skills or even think creatively, because there is no time for preparation. What carries the day is the creative skills of the trainees. We are talking about introducing games in training. Then the other one is personalization of learning and development, where we identify individual skill and knowledge gaps and tailor-make training programs that will help to bridge those gaps. Again, let me say that not all of us need the same skills in an organization. Let me take the example of ICT department. In this department, we may have several employees dealing with different things. One could be dealing with data security. Another one will be dealing with maintenance of the hardware. Another one could be dealing with software development. Or another one would be dealing with data. So all these employees need different skills and knowledge. Now that we talk of cybersecurity, we need to equip our employees with these skills. And therefore, we tailor-make programs that will help to identify and bridge skill gaps in data security. And all organizations need cybersecurity experts. It's not just banks or government organizations, but even NGOs and even colleges and universities. So basically, all organizations need cybersecurity. So by personalizing these training needs, we are able to develop experts in those various areas. And as we all know, when you are an expert in an area, then you are an authority, and therefore you are likely to improve performance or become a point of reference in case we have problems. The other one is recognition and rewards. How is this done? That those people who are creative are recognized and rewarded. This will encourage them to be more innovative in future, or encourage others to be innovative. So by identifying people who have innovated, be it a product innovation or a process, they feel happy, they feel important, and they are likely to stay with the organization for a long time. And reward programs like a bonus or a paid leave or a voucher to buy products is a way of encouraging creativity. So through recognition and rewards, we demonstrate to our employees that we celebrate their achievements. The other innovative solution in HR is career pathing and internal mobility. Traditionally, individuals were left on their own to determine their careers and paths. There was no clear guidance on what careers were available. And for those of us who belong to Generation X, there were only 3 careers that we all wanted. One, becoming a teacher, because these are the people we interacted with in the villages. 2, becoming a policeman or a woman, because we thought that was a very good career. Or 3, becoming a doctor. But today there are more careers that have emerged in the areas of ICT, in the areas of human resource management, in the areas of finance and accounting, or in the areas of public relations, or in the areas of communication. HR managers help employees to identify their strengths so that they can pursue their career objectives. And then we create a career path. It's like a pipeline, which we create, through which employees can move from a lower level to a higher level within a particular area of specialization. I've mentioned some of the areas like finance, so we can create a career path for our employees in finance. So somebody can start as a finance clerk, become a finance officer, become an accountant, or even become a finance director. So that's the path that somebody can grow into. In HR, somebody can start as an HR officer at the entry level and can grow to HR manager and HR director, and so many other careers. So it's for us to identify strengths in our employees and also consider their areas of specialization so that we can prepare these career paths. For internal mobility, this has to do with 2 things. 1, upward mobility through promotion. And 2, horizontal mobility, people moving from one geographical area to another. If I may address vertical mobility, which is through promotion, we need to identify people with the potential. We don't promote anybody. And the people with potential are those who have the right skills, knowledge, experience, and abilities. These are the ones that we prepare for promotion or succession. So we develop succession plans within the broader human resource plan so that we can retain our employees and give them growth opportunities. Second last is diversity and inclusivity, where we encourage people from diverse backgrounds to apply for positions. And that is why in our organizations, we may have a clause in our policy that we are an equal opportunity employer. By giving equal opportunities to employees, it means that we are encouraging diversity. For inclusivity, we are talking about allowing people to participate in decision-making processes so that nobody is left out, irrespective of their background. So diversity and inclusivity has become a new way of solving problems, especially related to discrimination, and also generating ideas from different groups of people. So by embracing diversity and inclusivity, we create a culture where people feel valued and respected. Lastly is the automation of our processes. I've already mentioned that AI is the new tool that we are using to streamline our processes and also find solutions to our problems. As we are all aware, AI has emerged as one of the tools that can encourage creativity and problem solving. You need to query this program, and it will give you several alternatives. And for us, we need to interrogate those alternatives and find out how well they can be used in our organizations and test them out. And that calls for creative thinking, creativity. AI cannot be creative for us. It's us to create systems, create processes based on the options that we are given by AI. So we can use AI in training, AI in recruitment, AI in performance management, or AI in service delivery. Sometimes we need to reduce the cost of employees in terms of compensation. So we can have AI answering some questions. And I'm sure some of us have installed programs where if you are called on your mobile, there is an automated response saying that you will call back, or you are out of the country, or give an answer to the questions that people ask. So AI has come as a handy tool that can be used in HR processes. And this is part of finding solutions to our problems. Our second subtopic for today are the conceptual blocks to creativity. As I indicated in my introduction, these are obstacles that hinder or prevent people from thinking creatively. This can be internal to the person or external, but our focus is mainly on the internal because it's the individual who can creatively think, but can also be affected by external factors. So this may include biases. Biases are our own personal preferences. And these preferences may relate to the way we do things or the way we relate with others. Where do biases come from? One, our own personal experience. That whatever we have been exposed to previously can make us have preconceived notions that may affect our judgment or decision making. Secondly, it could be our own attitudes. That if you have a negative attitude towards something, you may not be interested in it. If I may give a rudimentary example of those people or those of us who did not like maths, it is because of our attitudes that maths was hard and therefore it was not worth trying. Or attitudes towards our job. That we have a negative attitude or a positive attitude for that matter, depending on the content of our jobs. If the job is boring, routine, and repetitive, then we develop a negative attitude. Or if the job is rewarding, challenging, and interesting, we develop positive attitudes. And these attitudes affect the biases that we develop. Another cause of our biases could be the exposure to technology and exposure to new ways of doing things. So our exposures will affect the way we conceive ideas and interpret them. Secondly, assumptions. We all make generalizations about things or people in our environment. These generalizations may fall under stereotypes. For example, if you are to hire a security person in your own compound and you are given options of people from different backgrounds, you are likely to choose a person from a background from whose background is generally believed to be faithful or loyal, because of those assumptions that we make, stereotypes. For example, there are stereotypes about people from Kisii, that we are emotional. And because of that, we prevent ourselves from being creative, because we have made an assumption that somebody from Kisii is always emotional, and therefore we cannot engage their services. The other one is rigid thinking, that we have always done things in a certain way, and therefore there is no other way that they can be done. So this rigidity prevents people from being creative, i.e., we are not able to explore new ways of doing things. That requires flexibility for us to overcome these obstacles. So these are some of the reasons why people develop or have mental obstacles that prevent creativity. I want to address myself to specific types of conceptual blocks that hinder creativity. Number one is constancy. Constancy comes from the word constant, meaning that something is not moving. And this is a tendency where we stick to established methods or processes in the belief that they are the only ones that work. And this speaks to what I have just mentioned, that is rigidity. That if we stick to established ways of working, then we prevent new ideas, which are creative, to enter the organization. And therefore, this rigidity or constancy limits or prevents exploration of new ideas. And as a result, we become repetitive in our thinking, and we become very predictable. If you remember, I said that we operate in a VUCA environment, which is volatile, which is uncertain, which is complex, and which is ambiguous. Under such an environment, we cannot afford to be predictable, because even competitors have learned to shoot without missing. So when you develop yourself as a moving target, it becomes difficult for any competitor to beat you in anything. So being predictable means that somebody can easily tell your next move and therefore prevent you from moving forward. So constancy is a block where we are rigid and we do not want to explore new ways of working. And this can be applied in all the functions of HR, like recruitment. If you stick to the traditional advertisements in newspapers, you become predictable and repetitive, and nobody wants to touch you. For training, you don't personalize your training programs, people will move away because you are repetitive in your thinking and you are rigid. So we need to be flexible in our way of working, be it training, performance, or compensation. Speaking of compensation, we can modify our compensation systems by, one, conducting salary surveys to find out what other players in the same industry are paying, or two, we conduct benchmarks. So these benchmarks will help us to position ourselves in the market, either as above market payers or average or below. And that is a way of becoming flexible instead of becoming rigid, which we have called constancy. Next is compression. We oversimplify issues. And again, our environment is very complex. We cannot oversimplify things. For example, you are engaged in recruitment and selection, and you assume that employees will automatically apply once you have placed an advertisement. Not everybody can apply. And that is why in some cases, organizations may have to re-advertise because they did not, or they made an assumption that employees will apply once they see these advertisements. They oversimplified the issue of applications, that people don't just look for applications, they look for innovative content in the jobs. They look for value addition. They look for challenges in those jobs. So if you assume that an advertisement will likely bring you the numbers, then you can be mistaken. And because of this oversimplification, we limit creativity, because we always think that things are simple and yet they are complex. And what comes out of this is quick fixes. We should be afraid as HR managers of quick fixes. This is not instant coffee that we want to fix to enjoy ourselves. Recruitment, training, performance management, compensations require critical thinking, require creativity. For example, the issue of home working is not just about giving employees computers and giving them a network and telling them start. It is more than that. Because giving them computers and expecting them to work is basically oversimplifying things. There are other dynamics that come in, such as security of your data. That how safe is your data when it's out there with your employees? You can't monitor them, or you can't know what they are sharing with people around them. There are other things like mental health, which come with home working. So you need to fix that. And that is why I mentioned earlier that when you adopt home working, you need to be creative by probably having visits, physical visits to these employees to find out where and how they are faring. And this gives them motivation to continue working, that somebody cares somewhere, instead of leaving them alone. So compression is about simplification of complex issues and thinking that we can escape the results, which are usually negative. The third block, which is complacency. Being complacent is not being bothered about what is going on around you. And that is why we talk of comfort zones. That many of us don't want to move from where we are because we are comfortable. Things are working fine for us. Truth be told, people who are complacent cannot compete. People who have found a comfort zone cannot grow. And the people who cannot be creative cannot expand their territories. So complacence is about people developing their comfort zones because they don't want to stretch themselves or because they want to avoid risks. Those of us who have read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, anybody who is in a comfort zone or avoids risks remains or becomes poor. And people who challenge themselves, they get out of their comfort zones, they are likely to be rich. And by rich, I don't mean money. You can be rich in terms of new ideas. So if you are called to a meeting and you are out of your comfort zone, you are likely to contribute new ideas. You can also be rich in terms of network, that the networks that we create become our net worth. The people we relate with, the skills, knowledge, and experiences they have can be shared. So we cannot afford to be complacent because, as I said, one of the 1,000 ways of dying as a HR manager is to stop creating. And complacency, therefore, prevents creativity, which increases resistance. And as a result, there is no continuous improvement. Anybody who does not continuously grow, either in terms of position, in terms of skills and knowledge, or in terms of experience, then you stagnate. Comfort zones make people stagnate. So you cannot get new ideas and therefore you don't grow. As creative managers, we need to avoid this complacence, those comfort zones. We need to think not only outside the box, but without the box. We also need to take risks, and not just any risks, but calculated risks. That is the only way we can move from our current position to a better future position when it comes to creativity in HR. Having said that, I now want again to invite any questions that you may be having or any comments before I move to the next part. The floor is yours. You can ask a question or make a comment. That is okay, thank you. Now I move to the next part, that is creative thinking skills. Allow me to say that skills are what separate successful managers from mediocre ones. They differentiate successful managers from mediocre ones. Successful managers are those who achieve their objectives and also support the organizations to achieve their strategies, compared to mediocre ones who settle for average, not necessarily poor, but average. We don't want to become average managers. Why? Because we have an opportunity to become the best that we can in our environment. And that's why we need to equip ourselves with creative thinking skills. I will run through these skills and identify how the skills can be applied in the various activities that we engage in. To start with, there is problem identification. What is a problem? A problem is a discrepancy or a gap in terms of performance, which can affect, one, delivery of our services, two, attainment of our objectives, or three, the performance of our organizations. So when there are so many problems, organizations struggle to generate revenue, struggle to grow, or struggle to serve their customers. Creative thinking skills kick in identifying problems or challenges. In our work environment, we face many problems. For example, a problem of hiring wrong employees. So the question that you should ask yourself, how did you end up with this wrong employee? What happened along the line? Is it the need identification? Is it the advertisement? Is it the screening? Is it the interview? Or is it the placement? So a problem can lie along those areas. So if it is need identification, meaning that there is a gap, you need to fill a vacant position. That before you fill this vacant position, there are several things that you may need to do. One is to conduct a job analysis. Job analysis means collecting data and developing job descriptions, if there is none. But if there is an existing job description, then you review it. As you review these job descriptions, you need to think about what is going on around your environment so that you inculcate new roles, new responsibilities in this job description. And you need to be creative. For example, you are hiring an accountant. The job description for an accountant can be developed through job analysis. And from job analysis, you develop a job specification. And from a job specification, you develop a person specification. So I'm talking about recruitment and selection, where you identify a problem like having the wrong person placed on the job. So you have to work backward to find out where the rain started beating you, if I may quote Achebe. If it's advertisement, maybe you placed the advertisement in the wrong place where people could not easily see it, or if they saw it, only a few people did. So we need to find out which tools can we use to advertise our positions that can attract qualified candidates within the shortest time possible? So through creative thinking, we are able to identify problems. You remember we said that there are creative solutions in HR, be they recruitment, training, performance management. We can overcome them. Secondly is idea generation. This is where creativity takes place. There are many ways of generating new ideas. One, it could be through personal experience. Two, through consultations. Three, through industry experts. Or four, through brainstorming. When brainstorming, people look or generate many ideas in an unrestricted way. So this helps people to explore all the possibilities that can help to solve a problem. So idea generation is a creative process. And for HR managers, you need to identify possible ways in which you can generate these new ideas, which are creative. So brainstorming is one of them, or use your personal experience. However, as you use your personal experience, there are those experiences that were negative, and therefore they may not apply in the current situation. So for you to be creative, you need to find out what worked for you in your experience and what does not work for you in today's environment. So you generate ideas based on your experience and identify those experiences that work. Those that don't, you avoid them. And then flexibility. I have already mentioned the aspect of flexibility, that we need to adapt to changes in our environment. And that is why we mentioned some of the blocks that help us, that prevent us from being flexible. Constancy is one of the blocks. So if we think in the same way and thinking that we can achieve different results, then we are mistaken again. Being adaptable means that you embrace new ways of working. So as a skill, you need to be flexible, adapting to changes in our environment. Number three is curiosity and exploration. I had an opportunity to work in the media industry, and one of the qualifications of a media person is nose for news. Nose. Kwa Kiswahili mapua. Nose for news. That you must smell where there is news so that you can go there and present to the audience what is happening, something new. And for you to have that nose for news, you must be curious. Curious as in wanting to know what is going on, where, by who, and how. So in HR management, we need to be curious. Curious about what employees are doing, where and how. Curious about new ways of working by having a nose for new systems, new processes, and even new policies. So we seek new ways of working. That is the curiosity we are talking about. Then exploration is about testing the new ideas, whether they are working. So through exploration, through curiosity, we are able to promote innovation in our organizations. Another creative thinking skill is critical thinking, where we analyze and question assumptions. You remember we said that one of the blocks to creative thinking is assumptions. We assume that things are working and yet they may not be working. Or you question those traditional thinking. And as I will demonstrate in one of the techniques of creative thinking, that is asking the 5 whys. If it is employees who are leaving, that is employee turnover. For you to be a critical thinker, you have to ask yourself 5 whys. That is questioning those assumptions. You might assume that employees are leaving because of poor pay, and yet it may not. So you ask the 5 whys. Why is the employee leaving? They can tell you working conditions. And then you can ask a further questions. Why is the working condition the way it is? Then the exiting employee will answer. And then you ask another why up to 5. When you ask the 5 whys, you want to reach to the bottom of the reasons for living. And that requires critical thinking and making informed judgments. So it's about asking questions and trying to understand and looking at issues from all dimensions so that at the end of this process, we are able to identify what is good for us and how it can be implemented without creating negative repercussions. Another creative thinking skill is imagination and visualization. Imagination is about envisioning or creating mental maps of what is going on around us. Then visualization is about creating pictures, a picture of what is going on or what is likely to happen in the future. They are all abstract concepts, meaning that they exist in our minds, because what all of us are imagining even at the moment are different, and there's no way we can put a finger on what you are imagining. But imagination helps us to be creative. So you imagine a situation where there are no computers, for example. What will happen? Especially now that we are depending on computers for service delivery. So does it mean that without computers, we cannot deliver services? The answer is no. So we need to find out what can we do in the absence of these computers? So probably we need to go back to the traditional way of working, manually, but in a better way. Because the absence of computers does not mean that we stop working. We can look for alternatives. So through envisioning, we are able to find alternative solutions, and those become creative solutions. The other one is risk-taking and experimentation, where we are saying that whatever ideas we are generating, they can be good. However, we need to test them to find out their effectiveness, because the effects of failure can be far-reaching. So risk-taking, especially in business, is one of the key ingredients of creative thinking. Anybody who does not take risks cannot grow. But as I have said, the risks must be calculated. And those calculations can only be done by testing the new ideas we are about to implement. Thirdly, or third last, is collaboration, which requires that we share our ideas, our perspectives, and our way of doing things. We can share within our organizations or outside. I believe as HR managers, we keep our ears on the ground to listen to what the market is saying. And we create networks within our industry. So these networks can enable us to share our experiences and our ways of doing things. And we can borrow those best practices from industry experts. So that requires collaboration, working with others and sharing ideas. So as a HR manager, collaboration is a skill that we need to develop. And that requires two main things, or three. Let me say three. One, effective communication. Two, empathy. And three, sorry, teamwork. So I've mentioned three ways in which you can collaborate: communication, empathy, and teamwork. And through this, we are able to share those perspectives that will build on our creativity. The second last is adaptability, which also speaks to flexibility, that we need to adjust the way we think and approach issues, and also challenge those perspectives. That requires that we analyze whatever we are adapting to, so that we don't burn our fingers if we embrace the wrong issues. And then lastly is connection making. We need to make connections among different ideas. Is there a relationship? For example, is there a relationship between late coming to work and payment? The answer could be yes or no. Yes, if you have done a research and found out that people are coming late because they are not paying well. Or no, because you don't have an idea of whether there is a relationship. So we need to identify or establish a relationship between different ideas. And from these relationships, we are able to make solutions or make decisions that are creative in nature. So relationship making or connection making is a creative way of making decisions. Moving forward, we have the last one, which is risk taking. I've already mentioned it, that some of the ideas that we have might be risky. So we need to calculate the risks by looking at the potential for the new ideas to affect our organizations negatively. So risk-taking and experimentation is another skill that we need to develop as HR managers in creative thinking. So those are the main skills that creative managers require for them to be successful in a competitive environment like ours. Allow me to move to the next part, which is approaches to creative thinking in human resource management. One of which is the Blue Ocean strategy. This is not a new concept to us. It has been around for a while, but it has gained prominence in the last 5-6 years. because of the way in which we are expected to think. Talking of the blue ocean, it's like going to Indian Ocean, which is blue, and positioning yourself out there so that you can take advantage or leverage on the resources associated with the blue ocean. So the strategy here is that how can we take advantage of the opportunities that exist in our market? This market is the blue ocean, and positioning yourself in this market so that you can gain a competitive advantage, or by extension, a comparative advantage if you are a country. In Kenya, we have embraced the blue ocean strategy by identifying opportunities that we can tap into from our oceans, from our lakes, and from our rivers. And efforts have been made in that direction to ensure that we can tap into these opportunities. That if there's mining that can take place in a river where there is a mineral, we can take advantage of that opportunity. If there is fishing that can be done in a river or a lake, we strengthen our systems to harvest fish or grow fish in these rivers. Coming down to organizations, as a creative thinker, you position yourself in this market. Depending on the industry in which you are, you need to identify what your strengths and weaknesses are so that you can improve your weaknesses so as to identify the opportunities that you have. So you conduct a SWOT analysis of who you are, your internal strengths and weaknesses, and then the external opportunities and threats. Suppose you are in a consulting industry, you are a consultant in HR, you need to position yourself in this blue ocean. There are so many competitors in the market who are competing for customers or clients and also competing for resources or employees. So how do you position yourself in this market? It is by identifying unique products that are not offered by the competitors. Those unique products should be creative. And this will help you to achieve a competitive advantage. Or if there is a new concept that is in the market, you become a fast mover, meaning that you are able to adapt to the new concepts like technology before the others adopt it. That is a way of positioning yourself in the market as a consultant in whichever field, whether it is finance, human resource, or engineering. So uniqueness in your products, uniqueness in the processes, uniqueness in the resources will carry the day for us. And that's why we talk about the blue ocean strategy, which helps us to place ourselves in the market in a way that helps us to achieve a competitive advantage. Another approach is design thinking, where design has to do with developing or bringing into existence something, either existing or new. So we can design many things. Design jobs, design systems, like the system now we are using. The creators of this system must have thought critically. We design policies that can work for us. So by design thinking, we look at things that we can develop to solve problems, either current problems or future problems. Going back to human resource management functions, let me narrow down to recruitment and selection and training and development. So when you think of design, how are we going to design the process of recruitment in a way that is cost effective? So we look at all the processes that are involved in recruitment and design a process or develop a diagram, a flow diagram for that matter, that can help us to move through the phases of recruitment and selection. This will help us to identify where there are touch points and identify solutions to them. Secondly, in training and development, we can design training programs. We don't just design any program. We design programs that are, one, new but adding value. Two, we design programs that are relevant. Relevant because they help to solve a problem or achieve an objective. So as a HR manager, you need to embrace design thinking in whichever activity that you are engaged in. So you create a map of what you are doing and eliminate processes that are unnecessary or develop unique and novel programs that can help you to improve your current position. So another one is Agile HR. As I said, we operate in a VUCA environment, VUCA environment, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. How then are we expected to survive in this environment, which is complex and ambiguous? It's by being agile. And that requires three key things, as I've indicated. Flexibility, that you need to embrace those new ideas as they come, for as long as they add value. Two, collaboration. You need to work with people within and outside. For instance, those of us working in an academic environment, you need to collaborate with the industry such that you design programs that either solve industry problems or are applicable in the industry. And that is why universities and colleges sign agreements with industry players, that is organizations, in order to develop programs that will create a source of employees for those organizations. Or creating other partnerships like joint programs where organizations work with others to take advantage of their strengths. Probably as an organization, you are weak, either in human resources, and the other organization is strong. So by collaborating, you are able to complement each other and learn from each other. And lastly, responsiveness. this is about addressing issues and also being accountable for what we do. If there are issues as HR managers, we need to solve them. And not just solve them effectively in a way that is timely and in a way that is beneficial to the organization. So what are our responses to the challenges that we face that requires agility? The other approach to creative thinking is reverse brainstorming. Reverse. That in brainstorming, you are given a task and you generate ideas, as many ideas as possible. But in reverse brainstorming, you cause a problem. For example, how can we cause this problem? Which problems could we be thinking as HR managers? One could be poor performance, poor employee performance. How can we cause as managers this poor performance? One is by not providing adequate resources. Two is by not developing clear objectives. Three is by not identifying targets. Or four is by not monitoring performance. Those are reverse ways of causing a problem. And then after asking how you can cause a problem, then you find solutions. How can we solve the problem that we have caused? That is an approach to creative thinking, which we have called reverse brainstorming, where people look at the negative side and find solutions to those problems. Another approach is crowdsourcing, where we are working as a group and we want to invite ideas from these people, which can help us to solve an existing or potential problem. This can be done internally by utilizing the ideas of our employees, where we have implemented, for example, a training program, and we want their feedback on how best we can improve it. How best. So the how best is the creative aspect. Because as HR managers, we don't have the monopoly of ideas. And if I may echo the words of one of the key strategic writers, Peter Drucker, he says that strategy is like a weed. It grows everywhere and anywhere. So if you want a new idea, which could be strategic, don't look for it at the top. These ideas can also be found at lower levels, even at the gate, where people come in. Those people keeping the gate or manning the gate can be a source of good ideas. So identify people or employees who may have the ideas and solicit these ideas through whichever means, either through meetings or through other tools like questionnaires. Another approach is curiosity and exploration, where we are saying that as a HR manager, you must be looking for new ways of working. And by being curious, you are able to identify creative ways of working, which can be inspiring. And lastly is critical thinking, questioning assumptions and making decisions based on data, concrete data. So those are the some of the methods or approaches that we use in creative thinking. So if anybody has a question or a comment to make with regard to creative thinking approaches, you can ask them. Any question or comment? Okay, apparently there is no question or comment. I suggest that we move on in the interest of time, and that is tools for problem identification or definition. Allow me to say that a tool is an instrument or a framework that we use to do something. So in terms of problem definition or identification, we have several tools which I've called instruments or frameworks, as outlined in that slide, one of which is the SWOT analysis. This is a tool that we use in strategic management in formulating strategies. We create a matrix of this SWOT analysis so that we identify ways in which we can leverage on our strengths and weaknesses to formulate strategies or leverage ourselves in the market. So how does it work? You identify your internal strengths and weaknesses. And what could be these strengths? 1, qualified employees. 2, technologies. 3, financial resources. And 4, effective strategies. So what can we use these strengths for? We can use these strengths to innovate. That is, to conduct research or develop new ideas. 2, we can use these strengths to enter new markets. So if you have strengths in human resource, in resources, in financial resources, you can enter a new market where you think that there are opportunities. 3, we can use our strengths to improve systems. It could be a HR system that you are developing. Maybe you have qualified employees and you are looking for a system that can work for you. So employee strengths can be used to develop a new system like human resource information system. And for weaknesses, these are aspects that make us vulnerable and therefore unable to produce the necessary goods and services or become competitive. Usually the flip side of strengths are the weaknesses, like low quality manpower, lack of new technology, poor management, or lack of visionary leadership. These are weaknesses. So when you combine these strengths and weaknesses, you are likely to develop certain strategies which could be creative. Where there are many weaknesses than your strengths, you may have to adopt a strategy called hold position or maintenance. You maintain your current position because there are many weaknesses and externally probably there are no opportunities. And then externally, you have opportunities and threats. Opportunities are areas of improvement or markets that you can take advantage of or ways in which you can grow. Those are opportunities. And opportunities exist in the external market. For example, now that we are talking about East African community, you can take advantage of an opportunity in any of the countries in East Africa. If you have a product that you can sell, you go to these countries. That becomes an opportunity. Or it could be a new technology that is existing in the market. So you go out there and acquire this technology that can work for you. And lastly, you have threats. These are aspects outside the organization that you may not have control over and which may affect your operations, either to stagnate or even collapse. Those are threats. Many of the threats that we usually face as HR managers arise from what they call PESTEL: political, economic, social, technological, ecological, and legal aspects. For example, political instability can be a threat. So how do you survive in a politically unstable environment? You may need to adopt technology because you don't want people to move around because of the political demonstrations, for example. When it is a threat related to economy, for example, the economy is not performing, it's on a decline mode, you reduce your costs. Or if it is a social aspect where the community is not receptive, or where the community embraces certain values which can affect your operations, you employ the locals so that you become more acceptable instead of being resisted. Or if it's a question of laws or regulations, you adapt. For example, now we are facing many taxes, which are laws. We need to adapt because we can't resist them. So adaptation becomes important. So SWOT analysis becomes a tool for problem definition, where we identify strengths or our weaknesses. So if you have strengths, you can solve a problem. If you have weaknesses, you have identified a problem and look for ways of solving them. If there are opportunities that you can take advantage of, you can move and take advantage. Then secondly, you have the root cause analysis, where we are talking about the cause and effect relationship. Many of the things or the problems that we have a cause and an effect. For example, the problem of low revenue generation. If your organization does not generate enough revenue, that's a problem because you are not likely to meet your obligations without the revenues. So you look at the causes. What is this causing this revenue problem? It could be external causes or internal causes. The internal causes could be demotivation, or it could be lack of tools and equipment, or it could be poor supervision. So based on these root causes, you are able to solve a problem by finding out how these root causes are a problem. So we need to interrogate what our problems are and work backward to find out what is causing them. And by identifying those causes, we are able to find solutions. Another tool is gap analysis, where we are comparing the current and future goals or demands. If we are talking about human resource planning, you can conduct a gap analysis. How do you do that? By comparing between demand and supply of labor or employees. Demand is what you want. Supply is what is available, either currently or future. What is available currently is your staff establishment or staff complement. So when you compare what is available, that is what is the supply, and what you demand, you are likely to identify a gap. So there are two gaps that you are likely to identify. One, you have a deficit or a shortage of labor. Or two, you have a surplus. So where you have a shortage, you hire new people. Where you have a surplus, you may take several initiatives. One, you can do secondment. Two, you can expand or transfer them to your other branches or redeploy them. Or three, you can declare redundancy because you don't have any jobs for them to do. And after that, you can also retrench after exploring other possibilities. So the other possibilities could be early retirement or voluntary layoffs, which is a way of reducing the costs associated with human resources. Then the other tool is employee surveys. You conduct a research to get information from your employees related to the problems that you are facing. Usually a questionnaire is used, which could be physical or online, and you solicit ideas on how we can solve a problem. The last one down there is the 5 whys, which I mentioned. You ask why 5 times so that you can identify the root causes. So if the problem is poor management, so you ask why. Somebody will give an answer. Lack of skills and knowledge. Then you ask why. Is there a lack of skills and knowledge? Probably there are no training opportunities. Then you go back, why are there no training opportunities? You'll be told there is no budget. Then you ask, why isn't there a budget? You go back to lack of management commitment. So that management commitment becomes the root cause of your problem. That is by asking the 5 whys. That's just an example. And then the other method is performance appraisal, which we all do, where we collect data from our employees, and then we identify areas of weaknesses and strengths. The other method is HR audit, where we review policies, practices, and processes with a view to aligning them with our strategies and legal compliance. Flow charting is where you are creating a diagram where you can visualize. If it is recruitment, you can see the starting and end points of this process. So this flow chart will help you to identify areas where you are likely to face problems, and that becomes a tool for identifying problems. In some other cases, some people use the fishbone method, where you have a central point and then you develop ideas around this central point, just like the bones of a fish. They are all addressing a key point at the central point. And then focus groups. These are people who are qualified, probably industry experts, who can give us the data that we are looking for. Especially in research, these people come in handy because they help generate solutions to our problems. So industry experts know where problems could be existing, and they can help uncover or provide insights on how we can solve them. And lastly, stakeholder analysis. As HR managers, we have many stakeholders, that is internal and external. We need to assess their needs and solve them. So different stakeholders have different needs. For example, employees have need for growth. So what do we do? We train and develop them. They may have a need for empowerment, financial empowerment. We pay them. So that is solving problems related to stakeholders. So what does each stakeholder need? And from the needs, we can solve those problems. The next part is techniques for idea generation. How do we generate ideas? Remember, we are talking about creative skills in human resource management, creative. And the creativity, as I said, is developing or generating new ideas. So how do we generate these new ideas? One is brainstorming, which I mentioned earlier, that you don't restrict ideas from being given. So unrestricted generation of ideas enables people to be creative. Otherwise, if you restrict them, they will stop. Secondly is mind mapping. This is where we talked about imagination and visualization. You imagine possible scenarios. What if? For those of us who do scenario mapping, what if this and that happens? For example, we can say, what if our systems collapse today? Or what if key employees are not there for the next 1 week? So talking of key employees who are absent, how do we solve that problem? So you can imagine what will happen if your key employees resign or are not there. As a stopgap, you need to develop a pipeline of possible successors, that if anybody leaves like today, you have somebody to replace them today or tomorrow. That means you develop a succession plan. Or two, you train people adequately so that in the absence of a person, a fellow employee is able to step in and the services will flow seamlessly. So in mind mapping, you identify a problem or an area and then try to visualize what can be done to solve that problem or generate an idea. The other one is SCAMPA. SCAMPA stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, eliminate, and reverse. By substitute, we mean two things. One, develop all possible ideas. Develop all possible ideas and try to substitute them or replacing them with better ones. Which one can work? Which one may not work? So in substitution, you are developing all the possible ideas and then replacing ideas that may be current or those that you are using currently. So you develop ideas and replace them with the current ones. Two, you combine two or more ideas. That is bringing together two or more ideas that works for you. For example, you want to retain your employees. You can combine several ideas. One, provision of benefits, or two, internally equitable, and externally competitive reward system. So you are combining these two in order to retain your employees. Thirdly is adapt, that is being flexible, meaning that our environment is volatile, and therefore we need to adapt to changes. That whatever solutions that we have, we implement them so that we are able to adapt. Otherwise, if we become rigid, then we break. Then as time goes by, we modify those ideas. Some may work, some may not. Those that don't work, we can modify them or eliminate them completely, as the next word suggests. Eliminate those that don't work. Those that need improvement, you modify them. And lastly, you reverse, working backwards. So when you work backwards, you will now identify a new idea and then start the process afresh, reverse. The Delphi technique is where you bring together experts anonymously. By anonymously means that they don't know each other and they may not meet, but they contribute their ideas or answer your problems. So the Delphi technique is a very important one because it helps HR managers to identify those new ideas which we can implement to solve our problems. The other technique is the nominal group, where a number of people are brought together to discuss or generate ideas, and then they vote. They vote on the best ideas that can be implemented. And this can be done in a structured way where you have a chairperson who directs the discussion to achieve a specified objective. The other one is storyboarding. We have talked about mind mapping, where you visualize and you create a story from where you are, where do you want to move next? After that, what follows to the very end? So you create a sequence of activities. For example, you want to take disciplinary action against an employee. So you create a story and visualize this. Where do we begin? Probably you can begin by identifying the offense the employee has created. And then after identifying, you investigate. So investigation becomes the next box to be ticked. Next, after investigation, you invite the employee for an interview. Then after the interview, you develop, you create possible scenarios that suppose this person is not guilty or is guilty. What are the possible options? And again, this depends on the offense committed. If it is a serious offense that is under gross misconduct, the next process that follows is immediate termination or summary dismissal. And then lastly is creative visualization, where you focus mainly on outcomes, both negative and positive. But because we want to succeed, we don't want to focus mainly on negative, but there are possibilities. So if there are negative outcomes, you identify solutions. If there are positive outcomes, you improve them. And then our third last aspect, because of time, is fostering creative groups and teams. How do we promote creativity in groups and teams? One is to embrace diversity in terms of the team composition, where we bring together people from different backgrounds to work together. So if it is recruitment, bring people from different backgrounds like finance, marketing, ICT, and HR. They can have ideas on how you can go about recruitment. Secondly, you can encourage transparent communication where you provide relevant, accurate, and up-to-date information, which will help people to make decisions. And that requires that you create channels through which you can communicate, open channels. So if you adopt technological channels like emails or webinars, you can do that where you bring different people together so that they can discuss issues. The other way of promoting creativity in groups is encouraging autonomy, which is independence and ownership. When people are left on their own to innovate, they can develop many innovative ideas. And you create ownership that you can identify innovative ideas to particular individual employees. And as I said, we can create a culture of innovation by rewarding such innovators. This creates ownership that this person has innovated and therefore we reward him or her. Then there is also a safe work environment. We all need an environment free of illnesses and accidents, or where we can be comfortable enough to generate new ideas or creative ideas. So these safe spaces requires quiet offices where people can reflect on what they are doing and what new things they can bring on board. On risk-taking, we are talking about environment where there are no accidents because we need this safety. Lastly, down there is encouraging brainstorming, which we have already talked about, where you encourage people to generate ideas in groups without restriction. And after they have generated all the ideas, and then you can start refining the ideas and selecting the most applicable one to solve your problems. Still on fostering group or team creativity, we set clear goals and clear and challenging objectives or goals. I mentioned before, people become complacent because there's nothing challenging. Or people become boring or bored because the tasks they are doing is routine and repetitive. So as HR managers, we need to give our employees challenging tasks and allow them to work in groups. Those of us who can remember the Trump program, The Apprentice, groups or teams were created and they were given a task and they work together. And at the end of this process, they sit down and identify their achievements and failures. And in terms of leadership, they identify those who are weak links, and those are the candidates for elimination. So those who contribute great ideas through these challenges are able to put together teams and solve even greater problems. The other aspect is collaboration, which is working together as opposed to competition. When people compete, there is a possibility that they might undercut each other so that they can appear that they are the one who are working. But if you promote collaboration where people are sharing ideas and their opinions freely, then we create an environment of innovation and creativity. Another one is time for reflection. Allow people to reflect on what they are doing on a regular basis, either weekly or monthly. Lastly, down there is celebrate, reward, creativity. That when people are creative, you reward them and celebrate them. I have had opportunities to work with manufacturing organizations as a consultant. And an example is Crown Paints, which has developed innovative paints. And from sources, they say that those people who are innovative are rewarded handsomely. This encourages innovation. And for us to survive in a competitive market, we know we need to encourage innovation among groups by way of rewarding. This ensures that we survive in the market because there are innovative ideas all the time, because we have encouraged people to be innovative. The second last aspect is how do we create an environment or a culture of creativity. One is the leadership support for creativity, where the managers provide the necessary resources and inspire employees to work better and improve their performance. Learning is also another way where we learn on a continuous basis, new ways of doing things or working. And through learning, we are able to develop the skills and the knowledge of employees, which can go a long way in promoting creativity. For us to develop this learning culture, there is need to invest in training, continuous training and development. Then cross-functional collaboration. We can't work alone and succeed. We need the input of others, and that's why we need to work with them. I have already mentioned time and space under the previous slide, where I was saying that to promote creativity in teams and groups, if you look at bullet number 3 from the top, provide time for reflection. It is the same thing that we are talking about here, where you provide time and space for people to be creative. And how do you do this? Do not overload people with a lot of work. Allow me to use the example of an academic environment, that the maximum classes that a lecturer may have is 3 classes a week of 3 hours. So the rest of the time is expected that the lecturer is researching. So that is provision of time to research. So through research, there is innovation and creativity. That's why some universities are engaged in creativity and innovation, and we can see the results that have been produced. And that can be applied in all our organizations, irrespective of our station in life. Psychological safety, that is also what we mentioned earlier, a safe working environment where people are allowed to think. Access to resources, and that goes back to leadership, where they provide all the tools and resources to promote innovation. And lastly, promote diversity and inclusion, where we say that people from different backgrounds have different ideas and ways of working, which we can benefit from. Lastly, these are the emerging trends in creative thinking. I mentioned them earlier in my introduction. The first one is AI-driven knowledge management, that AI has become a very important tool today, where we can generate knowledge from AI by asking all the relevant questions. And this AI is able to give us the information that we need, which we can use to develop further. Secondly is video technology or visual learning, where people learn through visualization. That if you are conducting a training, you adopt these videos where people can see visually a concept. If it's a machine, a prototype of that machine is installed in these visuals, and the learners can see what is happening. If it's opening an engine, for those of us in manufacturing, you can see through this video how to open an engine and close it. That's what you call virtual reality video, virtual reality. That whatever videos that we are watching as real as possible. If it's an engine, it's as real as possible. If it is any other thing like carpentry, for those of us in that area, you can visualize, you can see that, virtual reality. Thirdly is the collaboration platforms where you create networks where people can share their skills, their knowledge and experiences. And this is an emerging issue because, as I indicated, you cannot succeed alone. You need to collaborate with others in industry. So if you are in the service industry, like a hospital, you need to collaborate with other hospitals. How? Because you may not have all the medical facilities that you can treat your employee, your customers or clients. So you can make referrals to other hospitals because you have a collaboration with them. For personalized knowledge, as I said, and I gave an example of IT, where there are various personnel working there, like those dealing with data, those dealing with security, and those dealing with hardware. You personalize their training. For those in hardware, you train them on hardware. Those in software, you train them that, so that people master their skills within a particular area of specialization. And second last is data-driven decision-making. We live in an age of data, and not just small data, but big data. And big data has to do with the 3 V's. 3 V's. V. 1, volume. A lot of data is generated around us through computers and even internal information systems. 2, velocity. The speed at which data travels is very fast, and therefore we need to develop systems to capture the data that is flowing all around us. And number 3 is volume. How much are we generating internally and externally, and how can we use this? Others have also expanded this big data to include value. That whatever data we generate, however big they are, they need to add value. So we use this data to make decisions, and this is where we are as an emerging issue. Lastly is the integration of soft skills. Soft skills are required by everybody, whether you are in technical fields or in the social sciences. There are many soft skills that we need to equip ourselves with. One is time management. The other one is empathy. The other one is communication. All these soft skills are required by everybody. So as we move forward in creative thinking, we need to equip our employees with soft skills so that they are able to perform their work efficiently and effectively. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of my presentation. Sorry, it has taken a bit long, but I can now invite questions if there are any, or any comments before we close. Any question or comment? Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a good day.